Good evening and welcome to Moreland City Council's August Council meeting. My name is Councillor Megan Hopper, Mayor of the City of Moreland. In recognising the cultural diversity of our great city, I'd like to begin by paying my respects to the local Indigenous people of Moreland by acknowledging that we are meeting tonight on the traditional tribal lands of the Wurundjeri people. I offer my respects to the Wurundjeri elders past and present and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Members of the gallery, please note that this council meeting is being recorded and live streamed to Council's website. This recording will also be made available as video on demand following the Council meeting. Gallery attendees are advised that they may be recorded as part of this evening's proceedings. Councillors, just a reminder that in line with the adopted councillor conduct principles as outlined in the Councillor Code of Conduct, councillors should ensure that they conduct themselves in the meeting with integrity, impartiality and exercise their responsibilities in the interest of the local community. This behaviour will support principles for leadership and good governance that support public confidence in the office of councillor. With us tonight at our council meeting we have Councillor Sue Bolton, Councillor John Kavanagh, Councillor Samantha Ratnam, Councillor Lambros Papanos, Councillor Linka Thompson, Councillor Rob Thompson, Councillor Oscar Gildiers and also Councillor Lita Gillies. We also have a number of officers in attendance with us this evening. Our Chief Executive Officer, Narina Di Lorenzo, the Director of Corporate Services, James Scott, Director of City Infrastructure, Grant Thorne, Director of Planning and Economic Development, Kirsten Costa. For the very first time this evening, the Director of Social Development, Arden Joseph, so please go easy on him. The Manager of Governance, Lydia Harding, the Executive Assistant to Mayor and Councillors, Monica Bucciarelli. Councillors, have we received any apologies for this evening's meeting? No? Okay, as per a motion at our previous council meeting, we will be pausing at the beginning of this meeting to acknowledge the 70th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Tonight we commemorate the 70th anniversary of the use of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, as mentioned, in line with our commitment as a member city of the Mayors for Peace network. On the 6th of August 1945, in the closing days of the Second World War, the US dropped an atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima in Japan. The 4,400 kilogram bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, was carried by the US B-29 Superfortress Enola Gay, carrying 12 crew members. The bomb was detonated 2,000 feet above Hiroshima, releasing energy equivalent to around 15,000 tonnes of TNT, flattening 5 square miles of the city in seconds. The death toll by the end of the year was estimated at about 140,000 out of the total of 350,000 who lived there at the time. The city still has some 60,000 survivors, with an average age approaching 80. I would now like to invite Tomohiro Matsuoka from Japanese for Peace to address Council, and this will be followed by a minute's silence.
Thank you, Mayor. I was really touched by the elaborate statement, and thank you, Councillor, for this opportunity. It was 8:15 a.m. on 6th of August in Hiroshima, and 3 days later, 11:02 a.m. on 9th of August in Nagasaki in 1945. 70 years ago, 2 nuclear attacks killed tens of thousands of people instantly. Those who escaped instant death suffered from their injuries, resulting in long, excruciating deaths for days, months, or even years. By the end of 1945, over 200,000 people died. Since then, over 500,000 people died because of the first nuclear attack in human history. Even today, survivors are still suffering, and the number of casualties are still increasing. Casualties are predominantly civilians, but also included Korean people, and of course, prisoners of war from Allied forces. There are also Australian soldiers who witnessed the moment of a nuclear attack at the prisoner camp in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. The historical records show that even the US commanders and generals at the time acknowledged that nuclear bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki has little to do with ending the war. We must make Hiroshima and Nagasaki as the last nuclear attacks in history. Moreland has a proud history of being a progressive community. Moreland is one of the very first in a group of municipal government signing up for the Mayors for Peace initiative. Mayor for Peace initiative was launched by the mayor of Hiroshima back in 1982, and Moreland became a member in the following year, the very first in Victoria, and only second in Australia, just 1 month after Sydney. Some people may think nuclear disarmament is a global political issue that is very remote from the local council level. But in the same way as climate change is a global and local issue, peace affects our everyday life. There are a number of migrants and refugees living in Moreland who escaped from war in their home countries. Peace is not something to be decided by higher in the political hierarchy. It is our everyday issue, which starts here at local level. Today, there are still over 15,000 nuclear weapons around the world, continue to pose a threat to humankind. In order to achieve a nuclear weapon-free world, parliamentarians, mayors, and religious leaders around the world have drafted a joint statement, which will be presented to the United Nations on September 26, the International Day for Total Elimination of Nuclear Weapons. A number of local governments around the world are already endorsing the statement. On this occasion, I would like to appeal to the councillors and our neighbors in Moreland to join a global call for disarmament and take a leading role in Australia and continue modern tradition of being a progressive community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Matsuoka. Councillors in the gallery will now observe 1 minute silence. Thank you, councillors. As promised at the last council meeting, I would also like to acknowledge the Moreland recipients of this year's Queen's Birthday Honours and note that letters of congratulations have been sent to the following people. Dr. Bruce Graham Drysdale of Brunswick for his service to dentistry and to the community. Mrs. Julene Barbara Maxfield of Glenroy for her service to netball. And Dr. Kirsty Sword Guzmau of Coburg for distinguished service to Australia, Timor-Leste relations through the development of mutual cooperation and understanding, particularly in the education sector, and as an advocate for improved health and living conditions for the Timorese people. And congratulations to all of those individuals. Councillors, do we have any disclosures of interest or conflicts of interest for this evening's agenda? No? If not, could I please have a motion for the adoption of the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of June and also the 8th of July 2015?
I just ask a question about the circulation of the revised July minutes. Has that been uploaded, the final version?
It has.
I hadn't seen the final version because that was revised later in the afternoon.
Yep.
Can we come back to that?
Perhaps we can lay it on the table.
Yep.
So is there a councillor wish to move that we lay it on the table? Okay. Does that require a vote for laying it on the table? Or? Yes, all right. I'll take a vote on laying that matter on the table. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried. I've received a petition this evening, which is from parents from the Brunswick East Primary School and the Brunswick East community requesting a 40km/h zone along Nicholson Street between Blythe Street and North beyond the Brunswick East Primary School and for policing of those speed limits. And the number of signatures is Around 150. Are there any further petitions from members of the gallery or that councillors wish to hand forward? Yes, please come forward and state the title of the petition and how many signatures you have.
The title of this petition is the Wurundjeri. The petition is to the Legislative Assembly of Victoria, but from the Wurundjeri people, Wurundjeri First Nations, I should say. And the second one is from the students of Glenroy High School and supporters. The first one has four signatures, but are very significant people in that, which is the one, the Wurundjeri First Nations petition. The second one has 14 signatures, again from very significant people that carry with them a range of a large support bases behind them.
Okay. Great, thank you. If you could just hand those forward. Thank you very much. Any other petitions, councillors? Can we have a motion to accept all of those petitions, please? Moved Councillor Bolton, seconded Councillor Gillies. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried. Reports from Committee to Council, RCC 1515 Family and Children's Services Advisory Committee. Somebody to move, please. Yep. Moved Councillor Rob Thompson, seconded Councillor Tapanos. Is there any discussion? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried. We now move to question time. Question time is an opportunity of 30 minutes for citizens of Moreland to raise questions with councillors. Please note that if your question relates to a matter on any of the officer reports that appear on tonight's agenda, this is the time to raise that question with councillors. You will not be afforded an opportunity to debate those items once councillor moves to discussing the agenda. A maximum of 2 questions is allowed per person, and a maximum of 3 questions will be heard on any one subject. Council will then proceed to the next subject, returning to the previous subject if time permits. We have 30 minutes and we want to ensure that everybody is heard during that time. So I do ask that we don't enter debate during this time. And if we need to, we can have a more detailed discussion outside of this forum. Also, councillors, I will only be accepting an answer to a question from either one councillor or one officer. We should address each question as succinctly as possible. So I note that question time is commencing at 7:15. And I will move first of all to questions relating to the report on Sydney Road and cycling safety. And the first of those questions is from Vicky Lakudis.
Good evening, everyone. Vicky Lakudis, owner of a business on Sydney Road, Brunswick, and also the president of the Sydney Road Brunswick Association, representing all businesses on Sydney Road, Brunswick, between Moreland and Brunswick Road. Okay, so I refer to the report Sydney Road and Upfield Shared Path Cycling and Traffic Safety Consultation. The report states that given the level of consultation undertaken and given the ongoing communication with key stakeholders, it has been deemed that further consultation is not required at this time. The forum itself was held on a Saturday between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m, which is a peak trading time for most of our businesses. And as such, major stakeholders encompassing over 540 businesses lining Sydney Road were not represented or consulted as claimed in the report. My question is, we ask that a moratorium be placed on the recommendations and actions in this report for the dual cycle lanes until all stakeholders are consulted properly, with our position as businesses being considered and represented accurately. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that's putting a position forward to councillors in relation to an item to be discussed this evening. Is there a councillor that wishes to respond to that? Or I think we'll just take that comment on board in relation to the debate that's taking place later this evening. Thank you, Vicky. The next question is from Rahini Ratnaka. Hello.
Thank you, Mayor Hopper. Good evening to you all. My name is Rohini Ratnakar. I own Brunswick Medical Imaging and have the privilege of serving as the Vice President of the Sydney Road Brunswick Association. I refer to the report Sydney Road and Upfield Shared Path Cycling and Traffic Safety Study. This report has misrepresented the traders' petition request because the report refers to the request for free parking in off-street car parks. This was not our position. There has been no reference to the actual proposal, which is for 2 hours free parking and a possible cap of approximately $5 placed on all-day parking, as has been introduced in Berkeley Square. We made no request in this petition for dynamic parking signage, but we had previously requested over many years, some may recall, 4 basic signs along Sydney Road directing cars to 4 main off-street car parks, for which we have not received any support. There's been no discussion about it. We now see, however, that there is a proposal for 14 signs to Bell Street at the possible cost of $1 million. That's not something that we ever envisaged. We have attempted to reiterate that certain car parks are only underutilised because of the high hourly fees and poor signage, with no mixed use or a daily cap. And it is really not fair to then claim that a portion of the car parks could be turned into possible recreational parks or such like. These car parks, after all, would not even exist if it wasn't for a very small group of businesses lobbying council to purchase the land for car parks in 1972, which traders repaid via a special rate imposed on all businesses in those areas over 15 years. Car parks are becoming more and more important as we lose other parking spaces, but on-street parking is a must to maintain and foster the functioning of the street as a mixed business area servicing the community in business, retail, health matters, and attracting visitors to our precincts. So my question, although the petition referred to off-street car parks mostly, are the specific requests for 2 hours free parking and a cap for all-day parking actually going to be addressed in the immediate future? And will the business sector be consulted properly if other groups or council are proposing to remove on-street parking along the 4-kilometre stretch of Sydney Road?
Thank you, Rohini, and we'll note your comments in relation to the presentation of the report and the way that your petition has been presented in there. I might direct to Councillor Tapanos, the councillor responsible for economic development.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, and also thank you to the Traders Association for the work that you've put in over many years in advocating and lobbying for improvements to Sydney Road. I have met with the Traders Association, and I am aware that the petition, quite a substantial petition, may I say, of about 1,000 odd signatures, did make suggestions about decreasing the hourly rate and making some full-time parking, and it wasn't for a blanket free parking arrangement. So I think that ought to be reflected, because that's certainly my recollection, and one only needs to refer to the petition itself. But perhaps where the confusion may have arisen is that in the chamber, individually, I called for a report at a later time to actually investigate free parking in those precincts, because we are getting the congestion levy and because it is timely that we do so, considering that additional tax being placed in fee parking in our municipality. So I will be moving something later today, or at least I will be amending something later today to include that we do take up the issue of the paid off Sydney Road paid car parking, and that we do consult and have a report brought back to council investigating the position of the traders and also the possibility of removing the parking completely, and what implications that would have, both financial and what implications it would have towards our business parking permits and a whole range of other matters, so council can make a future decision with all the information before it.
Thank you. Thank you.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Our last question on this subject is from Jessica Tolsma from Jessie Cakes.
Good evening, everybody. I refer to the same report. The cycle lanes proposed in the report were based on a model from Glenferrie Road that does not have clearways. My question is the council going to lobby Vic Roads to remove the clearways in order to implement a model based on no clearways? Or more thoroughly, is the council going to consult with key stakeholders for a model more suitable for the landscape on Sydney Road?
Okay, thank you. Well, I know that council has lobbied against the clearways when they were first implemented, and certainly consultation with Vic Roads is very much part of our plan in relation to this project and getting them on board with relation to any steps that we take forward. But again, I imagine it's something that will be discussed as part of the debate that takes place later this evening in terms of what steps we take from here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to another item on the agenda, which is the report on Merri-bek College land. The next question is from John Harding.
Hi, my name's John Harding, Torres Strait elder and previous president for the last 12 years of the Victorian Wongai Torres Strait Islander Corporation, which is based in Thornbury. I'll simply go to the question. You'll understand it, I think, afterwards. Does the City of Moreland support a statewide Torres Strait Islander Cultural Resource Centre being developed as a part of the Merri-bek Community Hub for the benefit of the 2,000 Torres Strait Islander people living in Victoria and the benefit of 300,000 plus in the Moreland Hume area? This will benefit non-Indigenous and Indigenous people.
Thank you. So Council has established a working group to consult on the future of this site, and I wouldn't want to preempt what the future use of this site would be until we've received a response from the working group. I think that ultimately it's very important that members of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community who make up that working group are given the opportunity to fully consult and determine what they believe to be the best future use of this site and bring that response back to Council while we continue our discussions with the state government around securing that land for continued public use.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the next question in relation to the Merri-bek site is from Sharon Firebrace.
Thank you. Sharon Firebrace, and I'm the chairperson of the LIN, which is the Local Indigenous Networks organisation, plus co-chair of the Merri-bek Working Group. I tabled before the petitions that have been signed by a considerable number of very well-esteemed people with many networks attached to them. I just want to say that this particular site has had, particularly since 1995, a strong Aboriginal involvement in this site with the school that was established there, which is a code school. It was open education, it was career pathway, Merri-bek. This has been the chronology of the involvement. And we've been, of course, sabotaged at the time and undermined by the Liberal Party at the time, that and also to those running the school, etc. But it was a very successful school. What we're proposing here is that and what has, in my capacity as chairperson, there's been considerable support, particularly from Lynn. They moved a unanimous motion just in our August meeting stating that the land and acquisition and 6 acres be transferred. That's being transferred, that First Nations people and First Nations hubs certainly have a stake in this. That has received strong support, plus those petitions that you've received, and plus a plan as well that this particular site have public housing for Aboriginal people attached to it, that we have medical centres and allied health services attached to it, and that we have a Warrawa-style college attached to it with accommodation within it, and that we have other space which is part of the multifunctional hub that would be created within this 6 acres. That's what we're proposing, and this is all established upon the development of Aboriginal organisations since the 1970s, which has been established for the last 45 years. The Victorian Aboriginal Health Service and Dental Service, the Childcare Agency, the Career Education VAI, and I'm missing one there. But all these organisations, of course, as we develop more to the north and to the northwest here, we as Aboriginal people, I believe, have a strong stake. 16 years of prior involvement, and also to the fact that the petition that was presented to you on behalf of the Wurundjeri traditional owners makes a very strong claim that we as Aboriginal people still have ownership rights to this land. The treaty still has not been signed, and we would certainly look to the council to treaty with Aboriginal people on this, and this would be seen to be as a treaty arrangement with Aboriginal people and contribution. I think it's a very important leap. We have, and I want to table here, a letter from the Balertma working group that substantiates and also supports what I'm saying. And I have also a package of letters which have come from the Honourable Natalie Hutchins MP at local government and responses. These are to certain individuals that have written to her. I wish to table all of this tonight to council. But as I said, it's an issue that we're very strongly committed to. We've shown and demonstrated commitment. We've shown and demonstrated and proven that we're excellent managers, that we've been able to establish and bring to this region multi-millions of dollars of business. And if we added up all the collective millions of dollars that have gone into all those centres that I mentioned to you, we're up around about $100 million. That's what we want to bring to this area here, and we want to bring to this particular project. I wish to table these.
Thank you very much for presenting those documents this evening. And look, in response to your question, I'd certainly put forward again that Council has unanimously resolved in support of retaining this land for community use, and more specifically Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander use. And at the moment, we're very actively involved in discussions at a state level around how that can best be achieved. It's wonderful to hear that you've been in direct contact with the Minister for Local Government and the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, Natalie Hutchins, and I know that we met with her quite recently, last week, myself and the CEO, to discuss exactly this matter, and she did say that she'd been the recipient of many very well organised responses from members of the community who are passionate about this matter. So it's definitely being heard and received at a state level, and we'll continue to put forward your concerns at that level.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question in relation to the agenda, it's from Amanda Burgess in relation to the Pascoe Vale Neighbourhood House.
Thank you for your time. My question is a simple one. I put forward a complaint, essentially a summary document and at around 60 pages of evidence documenting a number of claims we'd made to evidence a request to rescind the planning permit associated with the building of the community centre. To date, I've received no reply from your officers. Some of the information contained in that pertains to the actual process that was undertaken around the planning permit, the obligations of the council in relation to the Heritage Act and breaches of process in terms of the way that the decision was made, as well as a failure to consult effectively with the community and failures to adequately advertise the development right from the start. Wondering what status there is and whether the motion to rescind the planning permit could be received by the council.
Okay. Well, I understand it was a very detailed submission that was made to council officers and to the CEO, and so it has taken some time to respond to that, but I'm happy to hand to the CEO to respond to your question.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. A full response. So there were 8 separate allegations. It came in a few weeks ago, well, actually probably near the end of June, I think it came in. I've actually had our internal auditor working through each of those 8 allegations. Today I completed and reviewed all the information, and in fact it should have been sent to your email today. If that's not the case, it won't be very far away, and I invite you, once you see that, if you would like to talk to me, I invite you to come and contact me and let me know if you'd like to talk that through. It is very complex because you've got 8 particular issues that you've listed in there. I've tried very hard to address each of those, and I've looked as much as I can for evidence around particularly whether council had the information it needed to make its decision, which is separate to whether we agree with council's decision or not. They're two separate issues, and that's what I've tried to address in this. So once you have a read, I invite you to speak to me if you'd like, and happy to sit down and talk that through.
Can I ask, though, how that will affect the decision being put forward to the council tonight?
Well, what's been pulled together in your complaint it basically does not affect the information that council has received. So, you're asking to rescind the planning permit. Council's receiving a report in relation to, the heritage issues around that. What you've put in the complaint does not stop the discussion of that report tonight. But again, I invite you to have a read of what I've put in there and to contact me and to meet with me if you'd like.
I guess it's attack on the validity of the
so the
permit.
questions do need to come through the Mayor, and you have asked 2 questions, so I'll see what your third question is and whether I'll allow it.
I guess it's my question is that the planning permit as it stands
Yes.
Appears to have a flawed basis, and you're proposing to put forward a tender tonight, as I understand it.
No, we've already decided on the tender some months ago, or the planning process to this point. Tonight we're simply receiving a report on the outcome of the heritage complaint that was made in relation to this site.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next question in relation to the agenda is from Antonia Perrick. Hello, Antonia.
Good evening.
We haven't seen you for a little while.
I know. It's been winter.
It's good to have you back.
Thank you. You've got an update of sorts on your street landscape strategy.
Yes.
One of the action items, ... was to plan and adequately resource landscape projects linked to road reconstructions and footpath infrastructure projects. Should include consideration of engineering solutions to allow for the largest trees possible to be planted. It's listed as critical, 1 to 2 year timeframe with coordination amongst open space and roads/engineering areas. It's listed as completed. So I suppose my questions are either detailed or let's keep them simple. When was this new process implemented? Can the public see a copy of it? And in summary, what's changed?
Okay, thank you. I might direct your question to the Director of City Infrastructure.
Through the Mayor, I'll take those on notice, Antonia. Just limited information on the sheet here. I wasn't able to prepare the question from the information I can get, so I'll provide a response to you after the meeting.
Okay. It'd be great if I could see a flow chart of a road, a footpath resurfacing procedure. I've been asking for it for a couple of years now, so I'd really like to see that in detail, just to see the linkage between open space and roads. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Antonia. We'll now move to questions not related to tonight's council agenda. We have one from Jason Castledine from Glenroy.
How you going? I'm Jason from Glenroy Residents Group, and the question is just a bit of a background. Local residents have reported vandalism, used needles and drug dealing at 208A Hilton Street, Glenroy. We're concerned about the safety of residents, particularly our young people. Glenroy Residents Group supports the land acquisition and the construction of a community hub, because we feel as though the land sitting there at the moment is sort of, it's attracting some kind of risk to the area. So, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't realise this was in relation to an item on the agenda, which is the Blurt Route site.
So we'd just like to see if council can clean up the area and sort of try to ensure that it's safer for the local community.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you for that submission. It is a site that's currently owned by the state, but certainly I'll take that on board and provide that feedback to our cleanliness unit. Thank you. The next question is from, sorry, it's just photocopied and it's a bit hard to read. Sohail Hamid?
Yes.
Sorry if I've pronounced that incorrectly.
Good evening. This is regarding Moreland Neighbourhood Centre Strategy Planning Scheme Amendment C159.
Okay.
My simple question is, I have applied for rezoning of this. I am owner of the large lot, corner of Moreland and Home Street. I have applied for the rezoning of that land. My question is why it is taking so long time?
Okay.
Simple.
All right.
Yes.
Industrial land.
Is this in relation to the Moreland Industrial Land Strategy
Yes, please.
consultation?
Yes, please.
I believe that's only just been put out to consultation in the last day or two, but I'm happy to direct the question to the Director of Planning, if that's okay, see if we can get a little bit more clarity. You might have put in a submission earlier, which was not part of...
I've spent, I think, more than 2 years through proper architects and all these people.
Right.
Spend a lot of money on it. I mean, world is moving very fast. Why it is taking so long time? That's my
Right.
question.
So we've only just, you may have put in submissions to us in the past wanting your land to be rezoned, but we've only just moved to the Moreland Industrial Land Strategy, which is the opportunity to have it rezoned. So whilst it may be a matter that you've been hoping for some time, this is now the time to actually have it done. But have I answered it?
Yeah, I think you have. Certainly. Just to, if I can, through the Mayor, just give you a little bit more information as well. If you are wanting to make a submission while it is on exhibition, on our website we do have a number of forums that we're holding where you can come and meet with officers to talk about your site more particularly. But you can also just make a written submission, and you can do that through our website if you'd like, or just write to us directly as well.
I'm going through proper channel through my planner and all these people. I'm paying to them.
I'll just get you to direct the question to me. So I think what you're saying is that in the past you have made an application in relation to this site, but in the past we weren't considering the industrial land strategy. We now are doing that, and our commitment as a council is to proceeding through that in as prompt a manner as possible so it can be considered by this current council. So certainly you'll have the opportunity over the next few months to be consulted on your particular plot of land and to attend and speak to council officers about that. So what you've been looking for is coming to a head now. It's just taken a little bit longer than you would have liked. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Nick Dolby.
You can come and speak to us at any time.
Hello, councillors. Yes, Nick Dolby. I'll preface my question, which will be to an individual councillor, with a comment that, first of all, I'm not a member of any political party, and I've been never a member of a political party. I do want to say that I think that Moreland City Council workers and officers, and Moreland City councillors here before us, though Helen Davidson is on leave of absence, are, in my opinion, decent, hard-working, honest people who generally do a very good job. Yes, there have been mistakes, there have been dead ends, but generally Moreland City Council is an area in which I'm pleased and proud to be within. However, I am concerned about the health and well-being, and I'd like to address a question to Michael Teddy, though he is absent at the moment. Michael Teddy, you have been unable to attend many Moreland City Council meetings, including such things as information and development meetings. I believe you have made inappropriate choices in your personal behaviour and your choice of associates. I'm concerned for your health and well-being. I do not think being part of Moreland City Council is improving your health and well-being. Will you consider my plea for you to resign from Moreland City Council on the basis of your health and well-being? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Nick. As the councillor is not present this evening, I'll have to take your question on notice and place it to him outside of this forum and give him an opportunity to respond to you directly between now and the next council meeting. The next question is from Nancy Atkin in relation to Ewing Street.
And it does also refer to a budget item, which is the extra money for cycling and bikes. Cycling
okay.
and pedestrians.
Sorry, that wasn't clear.
If I could just say firstly, in relation to that, in relation to that item, that report, I was very pleased to see the extra money being allocated. In particular, one of our local issues that we've been raising for a long time is the provision of more refuges so that people can safely cross Glenarn Road, where the traffic is either running one way or the other, and it's very hard for the parents and children and cyclists to get across to go to school and work. And I'm a member of the Brunswick Residents Network, but we're aware that there's a group of Ewing Street residents who've been actively asking for extra facilities like this, and they've met with you and I think some of the staff. They've been told, I understand recently, that council will now apply for a 40 kilometre per hour zone to be extended south of Glenlyon Road. Now, this area, our network meets regularly with traffic staff. We're aware that this area was scheduled for 40k last year, but unfortunately, unfortunately for that area, it was bumped in favour of the 40k being extended around the Bell Street precinct. And I think now that the residents have raised it again, it's been brought forward again. My question is, why can only one precinct be processed at a time for 40k? This is an important sort of initial step in making streets safer, and Vic Roads now encourage it to happen. Is there a way that it can be rolled out across all relevant areas in one go? And if it's a budgetary problem, can that be somehow addressed?
Okay, thank you for your question, Nancy. I'll refer your question to the Director of City Infrastructure.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Nancy. I suppose in answer to the first question about why all areas not, say, done at once, as part of the process in applying to Vic Roads, and Vic Roads must approve the 40k, or the speed changes to 40k's in this case, we need to demonstrate that the actual speed in the area is currently around that 40k an hour. So we need to do traffic counts and speed counts, etc. So that sort of limits where we can move within the municipality. But we are currently in the process of going through Vic Roads, seeking 40k's that area south of Glenlyon Road.
Thank you. And our final question this evening is from Pauline Galvin.
Good evening. I'm a member of the Moreland Community Action on Transport, a group, Moreland residents, and Moreland Council has showed admirable leadership in the past in holding proponents of the East-West link to their triple bottom line that citizens of Moreland really demand. And we are asking what the Moreland Council is doing to ensure that the proposed widening of the east of the CityLink and Tullamarine Freeway, which is being proposed by Vic Roads and Transurban, what's happening to make sure that that proposal is linked into the triple bottom line, particularly in relation to amenity for Moreland residents, because there will be increased traffic both through and on that road itself, but also there'll be overflow to residential streets, to other arterial roads, which will have an impact on traffic congestion, on noise and on air quality.
Thank you. Our opposition to widening CityLink was recorded in the protestations that we made around the East-West link, so that is something that we're on the record as being opposed to. I believe that a couple of council meetings ago we did have a resolution last meeting to write to the state government in relation to their plans on this matter. So at this point I haven't received a response to that letter. So those are the actions that we've undertaken so far in relation to the widening of CityLink, and I guess we'll wait and see what the response is to our previous letter from last council meeting and see where we can go from there as a council.
Thank you. Moreland Community gets the action on transport. We'll really look forward to hearing what the council's doing.
Wonderful. Thank you for your question. We now reach the end of question time, perfectly on the spot of 30 minutes. Thank you everyone very much for your questions this evening on a broad range of topics.
5-minute break?
No.
Well, you can certainly move one, and if your fellow councillors support it, then we'll have one. Would you like to move a...
Yeah, I'd like to move a 5-minute break.
Okay, Councillor Boland, seconded by Councillor Gillies. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that lost. On notice items from the previous council meeting. We have on notice items... Oh, it just says that there are a few tabled there. Could I please have a motion to receive the on notice items report? So moved Councillor Kavanagh. Somebody to second. Seconded Councillor Lenka Thompson. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Reports by Mayor and councillors. We primarily receive written reports. Is there anyone wishing to give a verbal report this evening?
Me.
Oh, yes. Okay, we'll go to Councillor Tapanos.
Sorry, is there someone else? Not a verbal report, Mayor, as such, but just to inform Council that I will be on leave from Friday the 15th to September the 15th. Thanks very much.
15th of
August.
15th of August to 15th of September.
I was going to say, if you're going from October to September, that's a whole year, Councillor Tapanos.
Sorry, long evening.
No worries. Thank you for that notice, Councillor Tapanos. Councillor Rob Thompson.
I had a report supporting the local scouting volunteers that were honoured in Moreland and Darebin.
Wonderful.
I won't read through them, but they have been listed and will be minute. There they are right there. So I just wanted that for noting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thompson. We also recently had a Queen Scout awarded in Moreland, which was very exciting, so it's good to see our Scouts thriving so well. Any other councillor verbal reports this evening? No. We'll move on to the presentation of officer reports. Chief Executive Officer...
Excuse me,
yes.
Mayor. I just wondered if there are any reports that people were in the gallery here for that we want to prioritise them?
Certainly. I'll allow prioritisation of councillor reports based on who's in the gallery. Gallery members, I presume... I know that there are submissions to be made to the draft fossil fuel divestment strategy. And there is a member in the gallery awaiting that. Other items on the agenda this evening that people are waiting on? I assume cycling on Sydney Road?
DCI 3115, yeah.
Just finding it. DCI 3115. Any others?
The budget one that I mentioned, this extension of this.
Yes. So additional pedestrian and cycling budget allocation of funding. Very good. Any others that members of the gallery are waiting on this evening? No? In that case, I'll prioritise them in that order. So the first one is submission to the draft fossil fuel divestment strategy, and councillors, I'll require a motion to suspend standing orders in order to hear submissions to this item. So moved by Councillor Lenka Thompson. Is there a seconder? Seconded Councillor Kavanagh. All those in favour? All those opposed, I declare that carried. We have one submission in relation to the draft fossil fuel divestment strategy.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the draft fossil fuel divestment strategy. I'm Michael Stanley. I'm speaking on behalf of Climate Action Moreland and 350.org Melbourne tonight. I'll keep it brief. Quite simply, we do commend the strategy. We feel that it represents a lot of work done by council and others. So, we do recommend its adoption with one amendment. The one thing that we have seen that we feel could be improved about it is that it doesn't include a review of the investment policy with a view to possibly changing investment criteria in it. It should be noted, this is in detail in the written submission we've prepared, that we're not asking necessarily for the standards to be reduced. We're not asking for ratepayers' money to be risked, but we're simply saying that when looking at other councils use a diverse way of controlling their finances to manage risk, some of which would allow for greater investment of funds in non-fossil fuel lending banks. So we'd ask that a review of the investment policy be considered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael, for your submission. Councillors, can I now have a motion to resume standing orders? Moved Councillor Kavanagh, seconded Councillor Lenka Thompson. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. DCS 6015, submissions to the draft fossil fuel divestment strategy. Is there a mover? Moved Councillor Lenka Thompson, seconded Councillor Bolton. Councillor Thompson.
Just quickly, I'd like to thank the submitters to the report, 350.org and Climate Action Moreland, and also that we do note that they request that a review of the investment policy is called for, and we certainly take that on board, and just that we're looking forward to this fund strategy coming.
Wonderful. Thank you. Councillor Bolton.
Just in speaking to this resolution, I'd like to especially thank 350.org and Climate Action Moreland for putting in a huge amount of work to helping Moreland Council get to the point where we're on the threshold of hopefully, going the whole hog in terms of fossil fuel divestment. And I think really the council wouldn't have got as far as it got without the hard work of 350.org, especially in terms of research and extracting information and actually having the regular discussions on council about each step of the process. So anyway, I think it is quite exciting. We're getting a lot closer, and I certainly look forward to the October meeting, and certainly for other councillors, I'd certainly endorse the extra recommendation that's been put forward by 350.org tonight. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there any further debate on this item? No. If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. DCI 3115, Sydney Road and Upfield Shared Path, Cycling and Traffic Safety. Councillor Tapanos.
Thank you. I rise to move an alternative to what is listed in the agenda tonight, and hopefully we'll get it up on the screen shortly, but I'll read it out. That Council resolve, 1, to note DCI 13 report about dual cycling lanes for Sydney Road and the Upfield Shared Path. And to reaffirm our commitment that public transport and active sustainable transport modes should be prioritised on Sydney Road, Brunswick. 2, to not support the draft concept, Sydney Road cycling lane layout plan listed in the report, and communicate this position to the state government, Vic Roads and Yarra Trams. 3, to advocate to Vic Roads, Yarra Trams and the state government to commission a study into proposal from Revitalising Sydney Road, which is available on their website. This study should be focused on widening footpaths for dining and displays, disability tram stop, increased long stay off-street car parking and separated bicycle lanes. This study should assess the effects on the street layouts, on traffic, on parking, on tram speeds right across Sydney Road, Brunswick, and that the Sydney Road Traders Association and all other stakeholders be consulted in this study. 4, to support the trial cyclist clearing signage as proposed by Vic Roads as an interim solution while a permanent result is developed. 5, to note that the current parking restrictions on Sydney Road conform to the Moreland Planning Parking Management Policy. 6, to develop a report into the existing off-street fee parking areas around Sydney Road, Brunswick, detailing usage and financial costs associated with the new congestion levy. The report considered the proposals submitted by the Brunswick Traders Association and also the removal of fees charged to encourage increased usage of these underused council facilities of the Sydney Road off-street car parks, that the Brunswick Traders Association and other stakeholders also be consulted as part of this report. 7, to support the installation of dynamic parking signage and that a budget bid be prepared for future capital works program. 8, to adopt the Upfield Shared Path Safety Audit. 9, to allocate 100,000 of the 350,000 cycling and bits infrastructure budget for the purpose of addressing low-cost, high-priority items identified in the shared path audits. 10, a right to the Minister for Public Transport Victoria, PTV, and VicTrack seeking approval to widen the Upfield Shared Path at key locations. 11, develop a funding submission to Vic Roads to secure additional funding for the Upfield Shared Path as a significant part of our state's policy, strategic cycling corridors. 12, to advocate to Vic Roads for the installation of pedestrian-operated signals on Sydney Road and Barclay Square Shopping Centre. And 13, to advise the community of Council's decisions and thank them for their attendance, input and support. If I have a second, I'll speak further.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. It's seconded by Councillor Gillies. Yes,
Sorry, can I just raise a point of order? Just given the interest in this matter, and I'm aware that there are a number of alternative proposals that have been prepared by councillors. Can I ask leave of council for those alternatives to be tabled so that we know the difference between the proposals? No, I think we need a different process than foreshadowing, because I actually think they're similar enough but different in key aspects. So I think in terms of the officer recommendations and the other alternatives that have been prepared for council, I think it's worth tabling all of those so that council is able to debate the merits of each merits and weakness of each proposal.
There could be
That's right.
I think in terms of the standing orders, it's not possible to hear two debates at once, but certainly by foreshadowing a motion, you have the opportunity to read and display the motion, and councillors will have the opportunity to see that. And then as part of the debate around Councillor Tapanos's alternative motion, we'll have the opportunity to flesh out the argument, and councillors will determine. But you can't hear two debates at once. It's not possible.
Fair enough. I'm not proposing perhaps to have two debates simultaneously, but I think it'll be beneficial for councils to be aware of the different proposals on the table so that they're clearly outlined.
Yep.
And the other thing is, I think there are proposals that share many of the elements in this first proposal that might be supported by some councillors, but some aspects might not be supported by others. So just wanting a way forward in terms of there are some aspects in that some councillors will support, but not. So whether we move it on block or point by point, given that there are 14 points, we might need some chunking of points. So just want to ask a question about how we move forward with ensuring that we hear all the different points.
Certainly. I think foreshadowing is the way to read out the other alternative that has been suggested by councillors, and for councillors to hear that prior to making a decision on this alternative motion.
Yeah, can I just make one point? Just that the Sydney Road Traders Association is actually called Sydney Road Brunswick Association, not Brunswick Traders Association.
Okay.
So every time that's listed, could it be Sydney Road Brunswick Association?
Thank you, John.
Certainly. That's noted by the mover, and I'm sure he'll amend that appropriately. Councillor Bolton, did you have a question?
I was going to propose that, given that we've got the three things on the table, the officer's recommendation, Councillor Tapanos' motion, and Councillor Lincoln Thompson's got a motion on the books as well. I mean, maybe the way to proceed would be to have some general discussion of this first motion that's before us, and maybe Councillor Thompson to indicate what you agree or disagree with, or where your motion changes if you still want to put a separate motion or if you want to amend this one. And then when we finally vote, we might vote point by point. Might be the best way of doing it.
I think a councillor would need to move to suspend standing orders in order to have a general discussion around this item rather than a debate. My belief is that the best move forward would be to enter a standard debate on this item, allow Councillor Tapanos to speak to his motion and the seconder, and then to move to people foreshadowing possible alternative recommendations to this. It may be that nobody moves the officer report, and so there's possibly no need to put all three on the table. It may be that it's just the two alternative recommendations. If there are amendments that people wish to make to Councillor Tapanos's proposal, then they could certainly propose those as per the standard amendment process. And we can vote on it point by point.
Well, I'd like to move that we do suspend standing orders for 10 minutes to discuss the proposals on the table.
Okay. There's a procedural motion that we suspend standing orders for 10 minutes. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Bolton. All those in favour?
I support that.
Yep.
All those against? I declare that lost. Councillor Tapanos, if you'd like to speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. And I do begin by thanking the community at large who has participated in this process and attended consultation forums and given us their view around improvements to not just cycling infrastructure, but also improvements for traffic flow and tram and pedestrian flows as well along Sydney Road. Sydney Road is our major thoroughfare. It is a major highway for the state of Victoria, linking Melbourne and Sydney, and it's certainly a road that was planned many years ago, and it didn't at that stage envisage all of the traffic that it would have one day, all of the traffic, public transport, trams, even some buses that crisscross across Sydney Road, and of course cyclists. And we saw the tragic incident that occurred on Sydney Road earlier this year, and it certainly touched this council and the community. But more importantly, it's touched the cycling community who uses Sydney Road to commute, to work on a bike, but also to commute across the city and to do shopping and make a visit various people, and also for leisure. So we have in Brunswick the highest percentage of cyclists in the whole state, and we have quite a large cycling community. So it is a very important issue for council, but it's an issue that we must get right, and it is important that we consult widely, and we also talk to our traders and our shop owners and also pedestrians who use Sydney Road and our shoppers, and see how can we actually improve Sydney Road, make it better for everyone. So I moved this today because I think the proposal, particularly for dual cycling lanes, is not a proposal that I support. I have a look at it, and the first thing I think is that it's quite confusing. It is confusing to have a bike lane that would be between moving vehicles and the tram, and then at different points in the day, a bike path that would not be near the tram but would then be near the footpath. I think it would be confusing, not just for cyclists, but for motorists, for public transport users, and for everyone involved. And far from being safer, I actually think it would make the situation on Sydney Road worse. So I don't believe that is the path we ought to go down. I know that it's been trialled before on Glenferrie Road, but they don't have clear ways there. It's just one path. And I think that we ought to find a different solution which is going to be more beneficial for our community, and one which everyone can accept. So I don't see the need to spend millions of dollars on undertaking these two lanes. I think that we ought to do a study instead and trial some other projects and other programs that have been suggested by our community. So tonight I say quite clearly to council, we should be advocating to the state government and Civic Roads to actually undertake a more detailed study and consult widely about a more optimal model for Sydney Road, which would accommodate the needs and the concerns of cyclists, but also our traders and residents of Sydney Road. Traders and people who use Sydney Road. Sydney Road hasn't changed much for years, but now is the time, and I feel a great opportunity for us to be able to put something concrete on paper and be able to move forward. Now is the time that we have a state government that is listening. And I believe that if we do develop in partnership a plan that is beneficial for our community, even though such a plan would be in the vicinity of millions of dollars, I think now is the time that we have a state government that will listen to Moreland City Council, a state government that could undertake these projects and could invest very heavily in the cycling infrastructure. I don't want to get too political, but I think it's important that I do say it. Sometimes when you have marginal seats, you do get the funding, and having a Labor member in Brunswick and a Labor government might just mean that if we put something worthy up, it is something that might be funded. So I think we need to take advantage of that opportunity. But I wanted to also talk about a few other things that are important. We do need to address the issue of parking, and we do need to encourage a lot of people to park off Sydney Road. So I think it's important we have the study into how we can maximise usage of those parking facilities that are not on Sydney Road. And I think that is an important part of this discussion. The other items are all very important as well. I have run out of time, but I will make some concluding comments at the end.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. Councillor Gillies, did you wish to speak as the seconder?
I'll just say that I'm seconding, and I have listened to the many people who have actually emailed me in regard to this, and as not being a bike rider at all, although I do own a bike, I have taken, it looks very good in my garage, I have taken it into consideration, and I was surprised that a large number of bike riders actually didn't want what was proposed. So thank you for that, because that did actually surprise me, and I have taken it on board.
Thank you, Councillor Gillies. Councillor Thompson.
Can I move an amendment, please?
Yes, an amendment from Councillor Rob Thompson.
Could I ask to amend the deletion of point number 12? Is it 9, is it? Sorry.
9.
To allocate $100,000 of the $350,000 cycling, I'd like that deleted if I'll speak to it.
Okay, is there a second to Councillor Thompson's amendment?
So you're moving to delete that, is that right?
Take that out, yep. So the $350,000 will go.
Yes. So Councillor Thompson is moving to delete the $100,000 to be spent on the upfield shared path. Is there a seconder to Councillor Thompson's motion? As there is no seconder, the motion lapses.
I've got an amendment as well.
Yes, Councillor Bolton, an amendment.
Short amendment. I think I probably do support this motion rather than the alternative motion being moved by Councillor Lincoln Thompson. As far as I can see, the main difference is that you support the Sydney Road cycle lane layout plan as a trial for 3 years. I think my reason for preferring this point 2 is that I do accept the arguments that have been put forward by some residents to me by email that this will be quite a confusing, that the 2 cycle lanes, one for clearway and one for not clearway. I think that will be confusing. My amendment is that in paragraph 3, at the end of the paragraph to add "and Coburg," because I don't think this should be limited to Brunswick. I think, there's already a lot of fury from a lot of cyclists that our upfield safety audit ended at Bell Street.
That's true.
So, and I originally moved a notice of motion about that, but I withdrew it because Moreland Bug's done a safety audit in the north. So I'm waiting to find out a bit more information from officers about that. So I'd like to make that amendment. And other than that, I think I support this motion, unless there are other arguments that people have got to raise.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bolton, and I believe that amendment is acceptable to the mover, and so it will now form part of the substantive motion. Thank you for that change. Any further? Yes, Councillor Ratnam.
I'd like to speak not purely against the motion, but raising some concerns about aspects of the motion. So there are many parts of the motion that I agree with, but which is why I thought it was worth tabling the other motions so we're clear about what the distinctions are, but I'll try and cover it as I speak. So the alternative motion that Councillor Thompson will foreshadow is very similar in most aspects, but it differs in how we use the draft concept plan potentially as a pilot or trial and in a staged approach to introducing separated bike lanes for Sydney Road. So I think in some ways I feel like we're in where we share a similar view across this council that we would like safer cycling on Sydney Road. I think some councillors would like to see separated cycle lanes on Sydney Road, some with the existing configuration, others saying that it's pending the report outcomes and perhaps a reconfiguration of footpaths, etc. So I think we've got lots of points of agreement. But my concern with point 2 particularly, I do have concerns about the concept plan that's been tabled. However, I think to not support it at this stage is to do nothing. I understand that we're asking for a report, but there's no timelines around the report. I don't think the motion's strong enough. So can the report be done in 10 years? And then how are we going to implement it? Whereas the alternative motion actually has a staged approach recommended to Vic Roads, the staged approach of the next 5 years about what we're going to do incrementally to actually get a mode shift on Sydney Road, because that's what we need. We need cars, for the traders to be happy, we need the cars to feel comfortable. Shoppers using cars need to feel comfortable that they can park off street. But that'll take time. That doesn't happen overnight. So if you introduce a staged approach to getting that behaviour change, you've got a much higher chance of success. If we adopt this tonight, what we're saying is asking Vic Roads to do a report, and we're putting some signage, but we're actually not improving cyclist safety at the moment, which is what we were asked to do when we started thinking about this. Very happy to see the upfield recommendations and the investment that's going into there, but to take the concept plan out. I'm happy for an alternative if there's one proposed, but we're actually not proposing to Vic Roads to do anything right now to improve cyclist safety, apart from some signs, which in itself we know will have limited success. I'm not convinced that this is going to be fully successful, but I think it's worth a trial so we actually can understand the impact and monitor it. Because to pass this is to do nothing for the next few years. And is that what we want to do? Nothing. That's what this motion does. I think it is worth tabling Councillor Lincoln Thompson's motion so that we can see the alternative staged approach that we're proposing.
Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. At any point that a foreshadowed motion is introduced, I'm happy to hear it. So, Councillor Lincoln Thompson.
Motion.
Yes.
Should this one not get up? So, my recommendation reads that Council resolve that one, It recommends to Vic Roads that public transport and active sustainable transport modes should be prioritised on Sydney Road, Brunswick. 2, to adopt the draft concept Sydney Road cycle lane layout plan as a transition plan to implementing the separated cycle lanes and to seek the support, approval, funding from state government, Vic Roads and Yarra Tram. 3, to adopt this transition plan for years 1 to 3. And during that time, community consultation and scoping will be undertaken to establish the most favourable method of installing separated cycle lanes and the widening of the footpath. This scoping should commission a study to revitalising Sydney Road, including widening footpaths for dining and displays and disability tram stops, increased long-stay street parking and separated cycle lanes, as detailed in Revitalising Sydney Road report that was tabled to us last meeting. And 4, during this transition period and subject to Vic Roads approval, the pilot concept design be monitored and evaluated for its effectiveness in improving cyclists' safety. 5, to recommend to Vic Roads that separated cycle lanes be installed on Sydney Road beginning in year 3 to be completed with completion no later than year 5. And 6, that during this transition period, 1 to 3 years, that various actions will be undertaken to change parking behaviour on Sydney Road, such that car users transition to using off-street car parking. And all the remaining points are as indicated in the council report. There's 3 numbers.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Lenker-Thompson. And the way I will take voting on this item when we go to it is that we will deal with each point by point. Any point that might be unsuccessful from Councillor Tapanos's item, we will then revisit as part of addressing the foreshadowed motion. So is there a speaker in favour? We've just taken a speaker kind of against Councillor Tapanos's. Is there a speaker in favour of Councillor Tapanos's motion? Is there any further debate on this item before I allow Councillor Tapanos to close the debate? No? If not, Councillor Tapanos.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. Look, this motion is not doing nothing, certainly far from it. Firstly, we are having a look at the immediate short-term improvements that we can make now, and you already start seeing some of those have occurred on Sydney Road, and we are looking to do so at the upfield bike path. They are the immediate short-term items that we can address, and we are starting to do that with the increased investment for improvements to the upfield bike path, and the state government is starting to do that on Sydney Road. But I do believe we must not let the momentum be taken away with a solution that is far from optimal. It's actually a solution that I think is actually more dangerous and more confusing. So we need to say loud and clear, put that aside, it's not what we want to see, and actually undertake the work on the solution that is more permanent and that's actually going to make a difference for Sydney Road and for cyclists. So let's not lose that momentum. Let's not give the impression that this is okay, that 2 paths for different times of the day is going to work. Let's actually say, do the hard work, undertake the study, undertake the consultation, and then back it with funding and make it happen. So I feel that if we allow the short-term dual lanes, that might be all we get. But if we actually use this momentum to argue for the better policy, a policy that is inclusive of all the views in our community and works for everyone, we can actually find a solution. So, councillors, don't get caught up right now in a proposal that the cycling community has told us in various emails they don't want. Don't get caught up in a short-term proposal that may make things worse, not better. Actually think long-term, think visionary, and strike with the momentum that we have to get a good plan to the state government and a plan that can be funded. So I'll leave it at that, and I hope you support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. We'll now move through the items point by point. So putting point 1, all those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Point 2, all those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. I'm just waiting for the minutes. Yep. Yes, so division has been called on that point, so I'll ask all those who voted in favour of point 2 to raise their hand. Thank you. All those against? Okay. Point 3, all those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried unanimously. Point 4, all those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried unanimously. Point 5, all those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried unanimously. Point 6, all those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried unanimously. Move the rest on block. Is there support for moving the remainder of the points on block?
There's the report.
I'm just checking with the mover of the foreshadowed motion. Yes, okay, there's support from the mover of the foreshadowed motion to move all of them on block, in which case I will do so. So we're now moving points 6 to 13, on 7 to 13, I apologise. All those in favour? All those against? And I declare points 7 to 13 carried unanimously. And as none of those points were lost, we will not move to the foreshadowed motion. Microphone. Thank you. The next item on Council's agenda is DCI 3215, Additional Pedestrian and Cycling Budget, Allocation of Funding. Somebody to move, please. Moved Councillor Bolton, seconded Councillor Lenker-Thompson. Councillor Bolton?
I just support more contribution from the council to making cycling safer. I mean, basically this report is fleshing out specific proposals that the extra money that we allocated coming out of the budget, we made a general budget allocation to cycling. We increased that in the budget deliberations, and this is a recommendation about where the money be spent. I've got a belief that also we do need to spend some money north of Bell Street, but at least this is a big start, and there are quite a lot of dangerous spots that we need to fix up, but at least this is will be a major start. So I'd commend the additional funding and these projects.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. I'll allow the seconder first, and then I'll take your point, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, just to commend the officers for recommending these projects. They're all worthy projects, especially the one along Munro Street, the Refuge Island. That has been a problem area for many years, certainly preceding my time on council. So it's good to see that as part of this budget allocation. And also just to note, there's another upfield path allocation to the west side to undertake a feasibility study to construct a new shared path on the western side of the upfield corridor. So just another step towards that north-south route that
Wonderful. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Rob Thompson?
Just a point of clarification on the $100,000 for the upfield board.
Yes.
Which is included in here, and we've also voted on it in the previous motion as to whether that will be somewhat funding, which is why I moved to strike it from the previous.
Is there any?
We'll just make a note.
Yeah, can we just make a note that this is a reiteration of a decision that's been made in the previous motion, rather than a doubling of funding? Okay, so that has been noted. Thank you for raising that, Councillor Thompson. Is there any further debate on this item? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried unanimously. We'll now move back to the order in the agenda. So we'll return to CEO 315, council expenditure on print media. Somebody to move, please.
Can I move the report with an amendment, please?
Yes, Councillor Ratnam.
Sorry, just 1 second. Just bring that up. I'd just like to move the report recommendations with an additional point 4, that council explore the feasibility and cost of alternative printed forms of communication to the city news page.
Okay, thank you. Repeat that, sorry.
Sure, that council explore the feasibility and cost of alternative printed forms of communication, alternative forms to the city news page of communication with the community.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Is there a seconder with that amendment? Seconded, Councillor Lenka Thompson. Councillor Ratnam.
So just to explain the amendment, thanks to the officers for this report. This was a report that we called for a few months ago in terms of looking at our expenditure on some of the print media that we regularly use. So council has a city news page in the Moreland Leader weekly at a cost of approximately $100,000 a year. And we were just looking at the effectiveness of our different modes of communicating our information. The report indicated that 40%, I believe, the household survey received the Leader, and 40% of that 40% then read the city news page. So actually, when you think about it, it might not be the greatest proportion of residents for that expenditure of money. So I still think we need to keep the conversation open, which the report outlines that it's going to annually review the different forms of media. Also note that we've got a rapidly rising social media usage thanks to the work of our communications department, and that's wonderful to see in terms of alternative forms of communicating what councils do. Traditionally, councils don't get a lot of media attention. I think the additional point is to start looking at other forms of distributing printed form of media. So while social media is increasing, we still need printed media. There might be other forms that we can think about. There's no timeline there, just to keep the conversation open and think about alternatives.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Councillor Thompson, did you wish to add to that? No? Is there any debate on this item? Councillor Bolton.
I'd like to just raise one item. I mean, I'm happy enough with the resolution and the amended resolution, but one thing I notice, it gives figures for who accesses the Moreland Leader, who accesses the percentages of people who access Moreland Leader versus social media, etc., and it also mentions that in the northern part of Moreland, a higher percentage of people get their information through the Moreland Leader rather than through social media. But one thing which isn't raised in the report, or as far as I can tell in the household survey, but maybe the director could answer this, is how many people actually get the Moreland Leader delivered on a weekly basis? Because I hear so many complaints of people who say, I know in my place, once in a blue moon you get a copy of it delivered, and I hear lots of people say that they don't actually receive it very often because they pay the deliverers so little money that people don't want to do the deliveries, which is understandable. So that was a question. I don't know if that's asked in the household survey.
Okay. Do we have any data? It's a CEO report, so do we have any data on how many people receive the Moreland Leader? Or
through the Mayor, we don't have data on that coverage. It is true that we have mixed reports on the extent to which there is that weekly delivery, and that is mixed. So, but we can't pinpoint exactly what that looks like. We don't have good data on that.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Nancy, we don't really take points from the gallery at this, or do you have insight into the Moreland Leader's circulation figures?
Brunswick Residents Network did a survey on this exact topic. And
yes.
I can get it up the exact figures if you like, but there was quite a substantial proportion of people who never had it delivered, like about 30 to 35% off the top of my head, and then there was another 40% where it was only delivered erratically.
Okay.
But those figures are on our website and you can check them out. I think we've sent them too.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nancy, for that input. So we'll take that on board. Is there any further debate on this item? Yes, Councillor Gillies.
Can I just say, although I'm not opposed to always looking at feasibility of these sort of things, I will say that given, given that I never get the Moreland Leader, which I'm not too unhappy about, especially if there's something nasty about me in it, but the reality is I don't get it, but that I know that the residents in my ward actually do depend on that to find out what's going on, as well as it's a completely different demographic, I believe, to other areas. But although, given what we've just been told, that might be the reason why people aren't using the Moreland Leader as, how they get their news for the City of Moreland.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Gillies. And I'll note too, I've certainly received that feedback from residents in your ward when I've had meetings there. So, any further discussion on this item? No, if not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried. And I'll also acknowledge Councillor Teddy, who's arrived during that debate. The next item is DCS 5715, Assembly of Councillors record. Is there a mover? Move, Councillor Bolt.
Actually, I've got an amendment.
Oh, well, would you like to move it with the amendment?
Okay, why not? To note that I was an apology for the IND Issues and Discussion Workshop on the 22nd of June.
Apology for the IND on the 22nd of June. Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there a seconder?
Yeah.
Seconded, Councillor Gillies. Is there any debate on this item?
On the substantive item or the amendment?
Well, she's moved it with the amendment.
Okay,
Yeah, I've allowed it moved with the amendment.
Can I just ask about a point of order?
Yes.
So just in terms of Councillor Code of Conduct, the Assembly of Councillors record for this month indicates that Councillor Teddy didn't attend 50% of the meetings that he was scheduled to attend without apology and is required to provide a verbal explanation. And I note as well that for the previous council meeting, which was for the Mayor records, the same item was brought up. So I'm just wondering whether we'd hear the explanation tonight.
Okay. We're just opening the memo from the Director. James, is now when we would hear this, or? Yes. Okay, now, so Councillor Teddy, did you wish to proffer an explanation for not attending the IND?
Oh, no, explain for the 50%.
For not attending 50% of INDs.
Oh, 50% of council, Assembly of Council meetings.
Assembly of Council meetings.
Without an apology.
Without an apology.
So Assembly of Council? Or?
No.
Assembly of Council meetings. Assembly of Councillors.
At an IND?
Yes. INDs, Assembly of Councillors include INDs.
I don't believe in attending meetings that are closed to the public, so simple. It's not that I haven't attended, I refuse to attend.
Okay. Councillor Teddy, that is his explanation.
Could I ask a follow-up question, please?
Yes, Councillor Ratnam.
The point in the Code of Conduct is about why an apology wasn't issued if you don't intend to attend a meeting. And the reason we amended the Code of Conduct was that significant resources go into conducting and coordinating meetings, and we as a council group agreed that if you do not wish to attend a meeting, you should at least send an apology so that alternative arrangements can be made, for example, if no one shows up, so officers aren't wasting their time coming to a meeting that no one's attending. So I believe that there needs to be an explanation for why the apology wasn't received, because that's part of the Code of Conduct.
All right. Councillor Teddy?
In terms of the council meeting, when I haven't attended, there's been apologies. In terms of the INDs, they're not recognised under the Local Government Act, therefore I don't issue an apology.
Thank you, Councillor Teddy. Is there any further debate on the Assembly of Councillors? No. If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried. DCS 5815, installation of plaque to commemorate the Korean War. Moved Councillor Kavanagh. Is there a seconder? Seconded Councillor Gildies. Councillor Kavanagh?
Yeah, I'd just like to speak briefly on this one, please. First of all, I notice in the report it states that it stems from work of Councillor Yildiz when he was Mayor, and with Tom Parkinson. So well done on that. I know Tom's an absolutely wonderful guy, and well done on following this up, Councillor Yildiz. Looking at the plaque, I think it is something that that is an oversight. It's pleased to see it rectified. There's a name on that I know very well. He's a friend of my grandparents, Lawrence Ryan, who was killed in the Korean War, and he's also, his nephew is a very good friend of mine now, so very pleased to see him being recognised.
Thank you, Councillor Kavanagh. Councillor Yildiz, did you wish to add to that? No? Is there any debate on this item? No? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried. DCS 5915, proposed use of part of Council's land at 39A Bakers Road for a war memorial. Councillor Ratnam.
I'd like to propose an alternative recommendation to that in the agenda, that point 1, that the proposed use of part of Council's land at 39A Bakers Road, Coburg North, for the purposes of erecting an Anzac War Memorial, be open to 1 month of community consultation prior to a final decision by Council.
Okay, is there a seconder? Seconded Councillor Lenka Thompson. Councillor Ratnam, did you wish to speak to that?
Sure. So I believe, given the significant nature of this proposal, which by all accounts has been in negotiation for a little while, and the school has received some funding for this memorial, so I believe that we're all in support of this proposal. However, given it is on public open space, and therefore reconfiguration. Sorry,
it's not public open space.
It's not public open space.
No.
It's council land.
It's a laneway.
Road reserve.
Road
It's a
reserve.
road reserve.
Okay, point of order is noted.
All right.
Councillor
Okay. So it's public.
Somewhat
it's public land.
significant to what you're asking, though.
Sure, fair enough. So it's public land. I still believe that it's worth having a consultation, just in case we hear feedback that people, if they're objecting to it, it's good to note that before we make a final decision.
Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Councillor Lenka Thompson?
Yeah, I support the amendment that's put forward by Councillor Ratnam. Just for that transparency of what is going on council land and giving the public the opportunity to speak to it. I realise that it is a laneway, and what's been proposed is a garden with a somewhat big park, or I'm not sure what they're called, but it's like 6 metres long and 1.6 metres high, so it's quite a significant structure that's going to be put onto the council land. So I'd just like to see if this particular report until the next month, and then put it out, see what the public has to say.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Is there any further debate on this item? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 3, 4, 5. Oh, okay. I am going to, on the casting vote of the Mayor, I'm going to declare the item lost and see if there is an alternate recommendation.
Can I call for a division?
Certainly. Division is called. All those who voted in favour of the alternative recommendation, please raise your hands. And all those who voted against? Okay. Councillor Rob Thompson.
Can I move the recommendation as presented on page 40?
Okay.
And I'll speak to it if I have a seconder.
Yes, is there a seconder? Seconded Leader Gillies. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Councillor Gillies. The proposal that's been put forward here is on a road reserve. It's an unmade road reserve currently used by cyclists that ride up and down it and use it as a bike path. The school, the Islamic school next door to it, had put together a proposal and has been granted some funding from the centenary government funding, federal government funding. The proposal was met with open arms from council. They engaged with council a number of times and have had a number of meetings with us. It's quite a nice looking display, but it also includes a purpose-built bike path which will run up and down the length of it, and I think it's a fantastic way of funding this and getting the ongoing bike path joining Mellinston through to Upfield at a reduced rate for us.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gillies, did you wish to add to that?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Any further debate on Councillor Thompson's motion? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. The next item is DCS 6115, Draft Essential Services Commission Report on Local Government Rates, Capping and Variation Framework. Councillor Ratnam.
Could I please move the motion with an additional point to the recommendation? So add a new point 1, that council reiterates its deep concern and objection to the imposition of rate capping on local governments in Victoria, and then renumber all the points in the report from 2 to 4.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Seconded Councillor Tapanos. Councillor Ratnam.
Just speaking briefly to this, so this is about our submission to the Essential Services Commission report on proposed rate capping on local governments in Victoria. This council has spoken out a number of times with its concerns about what the impact of rate capping will mean for essential services and infrastructure, and local governments across Victoria are now facing very, very difficult decisions about funding some of the significant projects they've got planned for the community. I'd like to note that there are various rates, CPI rates that are being considered, and we're making a recommendation about not using flat CPI as a measure, and continue to advocate for local governments to be considered for the work they do, the multiplicity of the work they do, the varied work and essential work they do, that cannot be measured by some of the other standardised measures. So I commend the submission that we're going to make to the ESC.
Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Councillor Tapanos?
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. I do welcome this report being made public and being submitted by the Essential Services Commission, because it does give us a bit of a guidance on how rate capping is going to play out in Victoria. It is a policy of the state government that has concerned councillors and council officers and CEOs and senior management teams right across the state. There is not one council that is not concerned about the impact of rate capping on their budget and what that will mean for their workforce and what that will mean for their capital works project going into the future. So I am pleased that CPI hasn't been the only consideration, but they are looking also at including the wage price index, taking into consideration the fact that our business as a council and our expenditure is not the same as a household. CPI measures the cost of bread and butter and milk and other goods, but our business is a service business predominantly, and a business that constructs things, roads and maintains buildings. So we have a large percentage of our budget that goes into salaries and a large percentage that goes into construction costs. So the index is not the same, and even though this is some improvement on CPI alone, by taking into consideration the wage price index, I also think that 40% only is not enough, and that should be 50%. If it was at a ratio of 50%, not 40%, that would better reflect the case at Moreland City Council and the case probably at a lot of other councils across Victoria. So we need to continue to advocate and work to ensure that we keep making small but steady steps of progress to ensure that rate capping, when it is implemented, and it will be, does not financially cripple local government in Victoria. And we think that this report goes a long way to doing that by taking into consideration wages. I hope that there is a future report that makes certain amendments and takes it at 50-50, or at least there is a future report that develops a local government cost index that truly and accurately reflects the costs of local government, and then that could be the index that is used by future state governments to determine rate capping. So I welcome the report, but I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done. But well done to Moreland City Council. I know we're a little bit of a leader always in advocating on behalf of the local government sector, and I think we need to raise our voices on this one as well.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. Councillor Bolton.
I've got an amendment.
Yes.
I support the amendment that's been put forward by Councillor Ratnam, but I'd like to add an amendment. So Councillor Ratnam's amendment reads that Council reiterates its deep concern and objection to the imposition of rate capping, and then I'd like to add, and the use of an efficiency factor, and then finish the amendment along the lines that Councillor Ratnam put forward.
Okay.
And if I get a second, I'll explain why.
All right. Yes, seconded Councillor Gillies. Councillor Bolton.
Now, my reason for raising this is that, well, firstly, the state government didn't announce in the very beginning that there wouldn't only be a cap on rates, but also an efficiency factor. Now, of course, I'm not for inefficient council, I'm for an efficient council, but the way in which these efficiency factors have been dealt with in parts of the federal and state public service is it's a blanket cost-cutting measure of cutting of services or cutting of staff, which leads to services, because it's never the top bureaucrats that get cut, it's always the skinny cats at the bottom that get cut, the ones that actually provide the actual services. And I don't believe the Essential Services Commission when they say it won't just be cost-cutting. Tony Abbott, but also, both major parties have done this. They've just implemented these efficiency so-called dividends across the public service, and it's led to wholesale destruction of our services. And so I think we should indicate our opposition to that. That's as part of the submission points from the Moreland Council.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Gillies?
I'll just say that I support Councillor Bolton's amendment because basically there's been a big move on the continuous improvement and efficiencies within local government have also pushed reviews of significant reviews of services, and the reality is that local government is the benchmark of a lot of the services that are given to the community, and we're the benchmark in childcare. We subsidise childcare, but we are the benchmark. And the beauty of that is that because we're not trying to desperately make a profit, we can actually provide really good care for our children. Same with, our Meals on Wheels kitchens, our home care services. As you all know, I worked for the Australian Services Union. We did actually go in and negotiate agreements for some of the private home care providers. And, the way they paid their staff, the way they treated their staff, the way they implemented their service was all about, cost cutting and making a profit. So it was never the same. It was never going to be the same as what we provide in local government. We really are the benchmark, and so I support.
Thank you, Councillor Gillies. We're currently debating Councillor Bolton's amendment.
It's fine.
Okay, it's acceptable to the mover, in which case it will now form part of the substantive motion. Is there any further debate on the motion as it stands? No? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried.
Just for the minute taker, it should be of an efficiency dividend, not if. Of.
Use of an efficiency factor.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Kavanagh. I think in the last one it was Coburg instead of Coburg at one point as well. I should have pointed that out. DCS 6215, Moreland 2025 Community Vision. Somebody to move, please. Move Councillor Yildiz. Somebody to second. Seconded Councillor Rob Thompson. Councillor Yildiz. No? Councillor Rob Thompson?
Just like to commend the officers on excellent work here. It's taken a while. It's been back and forward, and having read through it briefly so far, it's quite compelling and gives a great overview of where we're wanting to head. So well done to those involved.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Ratnam.
Can I please move an amendment to add an additional point 3 to add the Moreland Street Landscape Strategy and Moreland Integrated Transport Strategies to the Strategy or Initiative section of Responding to Climate Change on page 30 of the document.
Okay. Is the amendment acceptable to the mover? Yes, the amendment is acceptable, and so it will form part of the substantive body of the motion. Did you wish to speak to?
Just briefly, in terms of the community vision. So this has been a couple of years in the making. So as soon as we took office in 2012, this work began shortly thereafter, and even prior to that. It is the coming together of months and months and months of community consultation in varied forms. We tried to get as many of the diverse voices in our community to speak into this document for our vision for 2025, and I believe what we have before us is a really transformative and visionary document about where we want our community to go, and what we'll do to support those plans take effect. And I thank everyone who participated in the consultation. I know a lot of people gave up a lot of their time, and subsequent to the formal consultation have been involved in the subsequent reworking of it. So I commend this report, and thank all the councillors, officers who put tireless amounts of hours into this, and all the community for participating in this project.
Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Any further debate on this item? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Now, since the start of the meeting, I have contacted Councillor Davidson. She's indicated that she didn't realise there was a meeting tonight, and she's asked me to pass on her apologies and to extend leave until the 19th of August.
I'm happy to so move.
Yes, moved by Councillor Kavanagh. Is there a seconder?
Yep.
Seconded Councillor Ratnam. All those in favour? 2, 3, 4. All those against?
It's, but she's
Declare
been-
that carried.
She's been out of the country. So.
She's out of the country. She's still out.
DCS 6315, right-of-way discontinuance adjoining 47 Sydney Road, Brunswick. Somebody to move, please. Move Councillor Rob Thompson. Somebody to second. Seconded Councillor Yildiz. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. We'll give it to Councillor Yildiz. You can be next. Councillor Rob Thompson, did you wish to speak to this?
Look, this is a small section of laneway behind Sydney Road. We did take advice and we also listened to some objectors at the last UPC or council meeting. My understanding from officers is that the distance of the lane remaining will be sufficient for moving vehicles in and out, so I'm unconcerned about the discontinuation of a small portion. This is not the lane, this is a small portion of land next to it.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Yildiz, did you wish to add to that? Is there any debate on this? Councillor Bolton.
I'm against this because, yes, it might be a small portion of land, but just because someone sticks up a fence somewhere on public land and claims it as private space, I don't think we should be legitimising that in retrospective. I mean, this is a bit like, but not grossly like, Lindsay Fox when he built his pool on council land in Mornington Peninsula. So, I mean, I just Lindsay Fox, anyway, whoever, some rich man.
It was Lindsay Fox, Portsy, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, somewhere down that direction. So, I mean, I'm just opposed on principle to just selling land and legitimising someone usurping council land.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there a speaker in favour? No. If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. DCS 6415, proposed lease of land at Sparta Place, Brunswick. Somebody to move.
Can I move a deferral of this report?
Okay, procedural item to defer this report by Councillor Tavanos. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. Declare that carried.
Why did you want to defer?
We'll never know, Councillor Thompson.
Could we ask leave of council to ask
I'm happy
Councillor
to.
Tapanos?
Sure, Councillor Tapanos, why did you move a deferral?
I think that council ought to think a little bit about this space, and perhaps I encourage councillors to go down and visit it as well and see what actually council usages and purposes could also occur instead of leasing it to a private restaurant. It is a prominent space in Brunswick, Sparta Place, there's a lot of foot traffic, and perhaps some kind of community use could be a better service to there. So that's reason one. Reason two is that I think that there needs to be some further consultation and consideration between the landowners on the site and how that is actually going to be managed with entrances and how it's all going to plan out. So I think before we put it out for consultation, we probably should determine whether there's a better use of the site than actually leasing it out.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. We could put a bust there. DCI 3315, traffic generation from the East Brunswick Village. Councillor Ratnam.
I'd like to move an alternative recommendation to the one in the report, which I've circulated to councillors. There's a slight amendment to the one I've circulated, which I'll outline. So that is that council resolves to, one, note that there is a 300% increase in dwelling numbers predicted for this precinct of Brunswick by 2024, so it's a 3B precinct of Brunswick. 2, acknowledge that council needs to anticipate, prepare and respond to the impact of this increase in new dwellings on the residential amenity and livability of the area. Point 3, investigate and prepare a design and costing for an alternative additional road bike lane to John Street or a redesign of the John Street bike path that improves cyclist safety. This design is to be prepared prior to the commencement of the construction of the East Brunswick Village. Following the completion of the investigation, and design council officers are to advise councillors of the outcome and prepare any necessary budget bids. And point 4 notes the recommendations for the Brunswick Integrated Transport Strategy, which aims to accommodate the projected population growth in this area with an inherent need to achieve mode shift away from the car.
Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Lenker-Thompson. Councillor Ratnam.
So this report has come to us as a result of a councillor motion a couple of months ago as a result of the East Brunswick Village coming to the Urban Planning Committee for a decision. There was quite a bit of community concern raised at that time about the impact of this quite large development, particularly on the traffic and neighbourhood amenity in that area. As I've noted in the motion, this area of Brunswick East anticipates a really, really significant increase in population over the next 10 years. This has been the subject of quite a bit of media recently as well, and there is collective concern about how much is being done to plan for the infrastructure and other amenity needs of this community. During the consultation or the process by which the East Brunswick Village was being consulted at the last stage, it has gone through various stages of consultation. The last stage was many years ago, so much of the community felt like they weren't aware this proposal was coming to its final fruition at this time and were concerned about that. At the final stages, there were concerns raised, particularly about the John Street bike path, which is part of the East Brunswick Shimmy. So it's part of the official north-south bike route in the eastern part of the municipality. It's used by many, many cyclists, and the proposed development actually backs on, has a car park entrance and exit onto the John Street bike path. So we've now got an anticipated increase of at least 1,000 car movements cutting across the path. It's not just travelling up and down alongside the bike path, it's going to cut across the bike path. And in my view, I don't know how we can protect the safety of cyclists with that sort of clash that's about to occur. There are some treatments proposed for John Street, like a speed hump, but a number of people are concerned that that's not going to be enough to protect cyclist safety. This motion acknowledges the need for us to do something in that area, particularly the John Street bike path, and is seeking to find alternative either routes to the Brunswick Shimmy in that section, or a redesign of John Street so you can actually protect cyclist safety. So I hope this is supported so we can begin that work, and it was a reassurance that we gave the residents as the East Brunswick Village was approved recently.
Thank you, Councillor Ratnam. Councillor Lenker-Thompson.
Yeah, I support this amendment and motion because I share the concern that with such a big increase in traffic coming into John Street, and knowing that the East Brunswick Shimmy and John Street particularly is such a popular a route for our cyclists, that something needs to happen more than just a speed hump. Like if the speed hump isn't going to restrict those cars entering into John Street that are going to potentially run across the path of an oncoming cyclist. So I think there does need to be a bit more thought around what we can do with John Street, and ideally I would like to see John Street remained as part of the Shimmy because it has a nice linkage north through the Fleming Park there. So it'd be ideal if we could maintain John Street as part of the East Brunswick Shimmy rather than sort of diverting, but it's up to the officers to come back with a recommendation, but I do feel that we need more than just
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any further debate on this item? No, I'll put it.
Can I just note that there was an additional point about text up on the screen which I've just sent to Lydia. So it also asked for alternatives on John Street to be reconsidered. So I've just sent the wording to Lydia around that.
Wonderful. I'm sure that will be added. Yep. If there's no further discussion, I'll move to the vote. All those in... Oh, okay. We'll wait until it's on the screen.
Good governance. Good governance.
It is. Councillor Thompson, you're correct.
Isn't it there? Alternative additional on-road bike lane.
There's an extra sentence after that, or a redesign of the John Street bike path that improves cyclist safety. The rest remains.
No pressure, of course.
Yes. Somebody needs to move it other than me. Okay, I'll now move to the vote. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried unanimously. DCI 3415, proposed parking restrictions, Barclay Street, Brunswick East. Somebody to move, please. Moved Councillor Rob Thompson. Somebody to second? Seconded Councillor Gillies. Councillor Thompson.
Happy.
No? Councillor Gillies?
No.
Any debate on this item? No? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. DCI 3515, updating council actions from Moreland Street landscape strategy.
I'll stand up.
Ups and downs. Councillor Lincoln Thompson to move. Is there a seconder?
Yep, street landscape strategy, yes.
Yep, seconded Councillor Ratnam. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, I'd just like to thank the officers for bringing this report to us. It was asked a month or two ago just to get an update on the Moreland Street landscape strategy, as street trees have become a very big issue with the residents and the urban heat island effect and trees in general. So this report highlights that from the 27 actions that are coming out of the strategy, 12 are currently completed. So the council is on track with completing the actions that are proposed in the strategy. And just to note that from our 60,000 trees, that it's estimated over $112 million of amenity costs, and that was in 2012. And also I'd like to note that from the environmental summary report conclusions, that there is some significant steps that council can take in order to increase the success of growing trees in our municipality, and also diversifying the species in which we have planted. Currently, well, at the time at 2012, when the report was commissioned, 80% of our trees were only of two particular species, so it'd be good to see a diversification of those, just to ensure that if a disease or something would happen, or a pest, then it would ensure the life longevity of street trees. And also that 80% of them were situated close to power lines, so which means that there would be a lot of pruning undertaken, which has an impact on canopy coverage, because there needs to be a certain clearance around power lines. So there are sort of further things that council can do in order to address the street tree and canopy coverage, and also addressing the urban heat island effect. So certainly look forward to some further discussions about the urban forest strategy that hopefully come to council in the future. And good to see also that there will be further discussions about soil health assessments, because whatever's happening on top certainly needs sort of addressing and looking at underneath in the soil as well. So.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Ratnam. No? Is there any debate on this item? No? And I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried.
Can I procedural motion move a 5-minute adjournment?
Okay. It's a motion for a 5-minute adjournment. All those in favour? All those opposed? I declare that carried, and we'll now adjourn for 5 minutes before returning to the meeting.